Hello, everybody. Welcome to the, what is this, June edition of the Northeast Florida Astronomical Society. This is our general meeting. Due to the fact our last general meeting went really long, tonight will be a little bit different format just because we've got a lot of people here that are new. How many people in here are actually members of NEFAS, paid members? All right. Everybody else, talk to them. They know their stuff about astronomy and telescopes.
Talk to you if you want to become a member.
Yeah, talk to Dave to be a member. We'd love for everybody to join. We have a lot of fun. It's a great organization. Moving right along, as some of you know, and a lot of you probably don't, for the last 2 months we've had an astronomy photography, astrophotography contest going on. We had 3 categories: cell phone pictures, because everybody's got a cell phone, DSLR, your Nikons, Canons, Olympus, all that kind of stuff, and then the big boys, the fancy CCD and CMOS cameras that plug into your scope, plug into a computer, you pull your hair out for weeks, and you come out with an absolutely world-class picture like some of the ones hanging outside. Well, for 2 months we've run a contest. We got a bunch of entries, and tonight we're announcing the winners. Cell phone picture taken through a cell phone through a telescope by a NEFAS member. Greg, where are you? Greg? Greg Gaspoto. Okay, I'll keep his prize. Different Greg. Not here. Okay, well anyway, after the show, come up and look at Greg's photograph of the moon. The winner in the DSLR contest, a little bit bigger. You can hook your camera directly to the telescope. You can go ahead and shoot through the eyepiece, which a lot of people do. You get magnification that way. Ian? Come here, big guy. Where'd the box go? The box.
Box is downstairs.
Oh, yeah.
You brought the wrong box up.
I'll run down and get it.
Okay. You're getting the box.
You get nothing.
Excellent. Your picture is awesome. Your picture is awesome. And one neat thing, it looks a lot better than my cheap printer did a good job on it. But, so, your prize is a Bader Hyperion eyepiece. It's a 21 millimeter, and it's got an adapter that screws into your T-rod. It screws right into the eyepiece. Nice. So you can set it up on when you get your new when your wife gets a new telescope, and you'll be all set. So congratulations. Yeah, no, haven't bought it yet. And then the big boys, the CMOS and CCD, the expensive. Some of these cameras cost upwards of $8, $10, $12, $15,000 for the camera. This one probably didn't, but this is a spectacular photo of Thor's helmet. Can't see this naked eye. Well, Dave will say you can, but you kind of can. But it doesn't look like that. And Rob, how do you say his last name? Herbst? Herbst. Rob Herbst from St. Augustine joined our club and submitted this photo, and he won. There's just no, once you see this, you'll understand. So, and he won it's a $350 CCD camera that will be here in a minute. So,
if you want, Chuck, I'll make sure he gets one.
yeah, I thought so.
Didn't say when.
Yeah, it didn't say when. It will be. I didn't put them until tonight.
Make sure it's still working.
Yeah, and then we'll announce it. So those are our winners. The competition was intense, very intense. One of them we had to get extra judges involved just so we could pick the winner. So once you join the club, that's something, we've got people that are just absolutely world-class astrophotographers, that if you're interested in that part of the hobby, you've got friends here that can help you with it. So joining the club really is a neat benefit, and it's a lot of fun. And you get to hang out with me. So. Next part of the show. This is the lightning round. What we're going to do is, NEFAS members have brought in all sorts of telescopes, all sorts of monsters here to look at, to show you. And the fun part is, we're going to give everybody that brought a telescope 2 minutes to tell you about their scope. After that 2 minutes, the buzzer goes off, or I go, eep, and it goes to the next person for everything that's in here. So, who should we start with? Who would like to go first?
Start at the end.
Which end?
That end.
That's mine. Go. As you all saw when you entered the dome tonight, outside there were 2 of these 6-inch Newtonian Dobsonian reflectors, just like this. This one belongs to the club. Its name is Tycho. That one right there is named Copernicus. The club bought these. They're very nice telescopes. After you've been a member of the club for 6 months, you can check one out for free. You can take one of these monsters home for a month if we don't have a big backlog of people wanting to use it. So that's part of one of your benefits for joining the club. They're nice, nice telescopes, and it wouldn't surprise me if you bought one after you did that. Whose is this one? I know whose it is. Brandy, where are you?
Oh, you're going to make her Dutch talk?
I make her Dutch talk. Where is he? Hurry up, we're running out of time.
We found it like in the club, it's only
Well,
not wanting it, so I honestly don't know much about it.
We're still learning about it.
Yeah, we're still learning about it.
It's a refractor telescope versus a reflector.
That's okay. That's why, and you're in the club, so you can learn about how to use it.
That's kind of why we joined. Actually, we found that and 2 months later joined. Not even lying.
Perfect.
And it was mostly just because somebody left it on a pile of trash, and we're like, and it was like right next to my house, and I looked over and I went, that's a telescope. I wonder if it works. So we took it apart, cleaned it, put it back together, and realized it does work. And then we've always been space nerds. I'm not going to lie about that. We've always been space nerds. And we sat there and went, well, this looks like fun. And then we brought it, and then we were talking actually to Eddie back here at Mom's.
They come here on a regular.
Yeah, we do.
Planetarium.
Yeah. Yeah, Planetarium Met Live, which is next week, by the way. It's the 50-year anniversary of the moon. And Eddie told us about you guys, so then we came and saw you guys, what was that, 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago now? And then became members, and slowly you're learning all the different things about telescopes. So you don't have to know anything and still be a member, guys. It's okay. I'm still learning everything.
Excellent. Okay, what do we have here? Bill?
This is a 2.4-inch pass-over refractor that I received as a Christmas gift from my parents about 1968, 69. My very first telescope. Great little scope for the first probably 2 years, and I quickly outgrew it.
Chuck.
I still have it though.
Chuck.
The second scope was an 8-inch Newtonian silver lens, an 8-inch, and I hand ground that mirror.
Got you. Sorry.
The second scope was an 8-inch Newtonian, and I hand ground that mirror. I've still got the mirror, but the rest of the telescope has just go to pieces. And then I've got some pictures, if you come by, you can look at, of the proceeding telescopes, or succeeding telescopes. 12-inch spit cast grain, again, these are reflecting telescopes. These were set up, I would take out to the dark sky site, also out of my driveway. And then eventually, I now own a 14-inch Richie Crichton which is currently set up in an observatory in Georgia, and I remotely operate that from my home. I do take the pretty pictures, but I also do pro-amateur work with professional astronomers at the Lowell Observatory and also with some other professionals overseas.
Cool. All right, just because of the way they're set up, I'm next. This one right here is, and this is officially titled the Edmund Wide Field Telescope, part number 2001. In 1976, they had a contest and they renamed it the Astroscan. It's a 4-inch, 400 millimeter rich field telescope. Comes with a little mount you sit it on. It can screw into a tripod, but that's no fun. You have a strap you can go around it, and you can look through it like this. It won a major industrial design award in 1976. It's neat as can be, and they don't make it anymore. I bought it for 89 bucks off of eBay.
Wow.
And it works great.
What's the power of it?
Well, one of the things you're going to learn when you talk to everybody in the astronomy club is power doesn't mean a thing. What you're looking for is aperture, the width of the objective, the amount of light it can absorb, and it can get inside of it. So you'll notice little scopes, medium-sized scopes, stupid scopes. That's just jealousy talking, folks. So this one right here, it can go in 40 or 50 power, but that's all you need. You can see the rings of Saturn, you can see the moons of Jupiter. It has a great big wide field, so you don't really need a finder scope on it. I'm not going to hit it. That goes home with me. But this is a neat toy, and the fun part is everybody wants one, so they're going to start making them again in 2020.
Sweet. I looked for one, couldn't find it.
This monster, I'm showing you tonight because the person who learned how to use this is not here this evening. This is, anybody old enough to remember the Gilbert chemistry sets? You know, metal box science kits made by Gilbert. It's like Gilbert telescope. Okay, this is about as primitive and as small and as pathetic and useless a telescope as you'll ever find. Okay? And I said that for a reason, because the guy that owns this got real excited about astronomy and ended up getting his PhD in astronomy at the University of Florida. He was an astronomy professor, mathematics teacher, was eventually the director of the Chabot Science Center in San Francisco, worked on the board for the Yerkes telescope in Chicago, was a runner-up to Krista McAuliffe for the teacher in space. The guy that started with this is a friggin' astronaut. He's also one of the founders of our club, Dr. Mike Reynolds. He couldn't be here tonight, but that's what Mikey started with. So, when you're looking at Bill's scope or something like this, just remember, from little things, for everybody that's got one of these in their closet, they are neat. This one's also mine, but Wifey's going to have to talk about that because I gave it to her. Okay.
Puts me next, that baby.
Dave, your 2 minutes of fame.
All right, hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Dave. As I mentioned before, I'm the membership guy, so if you're curious about joining, come talk to me. But right now it's my 2 minutes for the telescope, so.
Minute and 45 seconds.
Cool. I know there's a lot of new people here tonight, a lot of people from Mike's class, so I want to use my 2 minutes to talk about aperture because it's been touched on a little bit, but I figure, here's my telescope, you've seen it, so let's talk about aperture. The reason why some of these telescopes are as big as they are is that when we're looking for dim objects, we're looking at galaxies, nebulae, star clusters, that kind of thing. The bigger the opening, the more light your telescope can gather. So it's basically like you have a pupil this big across. You know how your pupil gets bigger in a dark room? Your telescope does that for you. So if you're looking for a new telescope, if you've not bought one before, if you want to learn more about it, and that's why you came here tonight, that's one thing to look out for. But another thing I want to mention is, when it comes to size, you also have to be concerned with portability. Will you actually carry this thing out and observe with it? Because your telescope is meant to gather light, it is not meant to gather dust. And I think that's probably my 2 minutes.
That's why the best telescope you can buy is the one you're going to use. Kevin's up. Thanks, Steve.
I'm actually going to follow up a little bit on what David started on the portability. So this is mine. It's a 10-inch, again, Newtonian, but this is on an equatorial mount. The difference in setup time, for instance, is considerable. This is about maybe 5 minutes if you're slacking. This is about a 30-minute operation between assembly, doing what's called alignment. The difference is things here you've got to find manually. You've got to track it manually. This one's got a computer that does that for me. And it means you can find a lot of things you won't find with a scope like this without a lot of effort. I've been able to track down Pluto, for instance, twice using this. And like I say, it lets me see things a lot faster. It also, touching back to the photo contest, means that this is very good for people wanting to take cell phone pictures, because you can concentrate on just hold the phone in place instead of is it even in the view anymore. But you don't want to get into something this big until you know you're serious about this. I can't use this at my house. I can't see north to do the alignment. So I have to travel out to our dark sky set anytime I want to use it. For me, I don't think twice about that. You tell me it's clear, I'm loading up, I'm on the road. But you want to make sure you're serious about that before you invest in something of this size. It's one reason we like to push binoculars. I'm probably out of time, aren't I?
Yes, you did good. One point he was mentioning about using your cell phone. Sometimes it's hard to hold the cell phone square in here. This is Greg's price for the cell phone contest. This is an adapter that clamps onto your eyepiece, holds the cell phone, has little knobs so you can move it up, down, left, right, and it centers your cell phone so you can take pictures through it really easily. Great prize, anywhere from 50 to 100 bucks. This is a nice one. Okay. This is Mr. Telescope Envy, okay? We all hate him.
Get a smaller telescope.
Yes, I have Telescope Envy badly.
Does that mean he gets extra time because he's got the biggest scope?
I get 14 minutes. Okay, I have a Celestron C14. When I first bought this, I tried to transport it, and I stuck all the boxes in the back of my truck. It didn't fit. So I had to build a trailer, and over the last 3 years, I've been modifying the trailer so that it holds everything. Because the last thing you want to do is go out to a site and forget something. I've forgotten eyepieces, I've forgotten cables, and when you do that, you can't use the telescope. So I'm an engineer, so I've had redesigned the power supply on this because I had problems 2 years ago with the power supply burning out all the electronics inside this pier, as well as handheld control module. And the nice thing about this telescope, Celestron has a lot of features that makes it easy to use a telescope like this. I have something called the Star Sense here. This will align your telescope with 100 stars within 5 minutes. And when you get that done, I can select any object in that handheld control module and be right in the center of the eyepiece. And it also works well with computer software. And this telescope weighs about 300 pounds set up. And when you're talking about power, a lot of people think the higher the power, the more you can see. Well, the opposite is true. When you get a small telescope and you have 500-600 power, you cannot focus on the object, and you lose detail. And typically, when I look at stars, I'm usually right around 150 power. When I'm looking at the moon, I'm up towards 300 power. When I'm looking at planets, it's about 250. And that's all you need to really get a good image of these different objects. And this thing is fantastic looking at globular clusters. In smaller scopes than this, globular cluster looks like a gray fuzzy patch. This one here, you can resolve the individual stars. You can see the color in the stars, but you have to be in a dark sky spot. And if you have any questions, you come up to me later. I have a poster board on.
Greg, you've seen Pluto through that telescope.
Yes, last summer we were at Trailmark neighborhood, and we saw every planet in one evening. And another nice feature about this, there's a program called the Virtual Moon, and once you get it aligned, get the telescope aligned using StarSense, I can execute Virtual Moon, and what I do is I select a particular crater on the moon and sync it with the telescope, and I can point to any object on that moon, on the moon, and it'll go right there. So I've been able to demonstrate the Apollo 15, Apollo 11, and Apollo 12 landing sites. When you get towards the upper, like 15, or the 16 and 17, the moon is almost full and there's too much light, you can't really see any detail.
But you can't see the flag and you can't see the rover.
Right. So if you wanted to see the flag on the moon, your telescope would have to have a mirror about 627 feet in diameter, and your eyepiece would be about a quarter of a mile to a mile up. And you wouldn't be able to move it.
And that's real expensive.
And we still haven't achieved that goal yet.
Excellent. Thank you, man. All right. Where is he? Sam?
I'm up front.
Thank you. So this is mine. It's an eyepiece for his, so it just fits. But like Dave said, this is a 6-inch Celestron. It does have a basic tracking module, so it will track the stars and find them for me. It's not going to be as good as these, but it does track them just fine.
How long does it take you to set it up?
There you go, right? So what Dave said, that I know myself, I've been in this a long time. I used to have one of those over there, and you had to lug it out and set it up and stuff, and there's no way I would ever do this. This, I cart it out, it literally, I can cart the whole thing, the tripod, everything, set it out in my driveway and be working in 5 minutes. And if the clouds come, I just pick it back up, take it back inside. And so that's, I know myself, and I know that I wouldn't set this up very often. This I set up all the time, and I can do it from my driveway, or I can go out to the dark side site and set up out there. The other thing about this one I like is it's kind of small, but it's good for both visual observing and for photography. I really like the photography aspect of it, and so I can put my camera on the back and shoot that, or I can use an eyepiece and see things. So it's not great at any of those, but it's good enough for all of them. And so that really is what drew me to it. And it's a great scope. I said I use it all the time if the skies are clear. So
What's the focal length on it?
this is 1,500 millimeters, so it's again 6-inch, 1,500 millimeters, and again it'll get up to 200 some odd power with a regular eyepiece in it. Plenty good enough again to see the moons of Jupiter and see the banding on Jupiter. See the rings of Saturn, see the gap in between the rings. Again, it'll do all that if the sky is good and the sea is clear. But again, it literally weighs, the actual tube part itself probably weighs about 4 pounds. I mean, it's very light. The mount actually weighs more than that. But you can see this is my gear. I don't have a trailer. I have a Tupperware bin. But again, I did that intentionally. I'd love to have this. Aperture envy is a real thing. That is a real
boat
thing.
envy was bad.
Yeah, but it's again, I just know that I would not set that up. So.
For those of you that are photographers, he mentioned that's a 1,500 millimeter telescope. So actually, at a 1,500 millimeter lens, it's a monster. What's your focal length?
It's 3,800.
And so he's close to 4,000 millimeters on the big boy.
Okay, to make Chuck happy, I bought a small telescope.
Thank you. Eric. Eric is up next. Do me a favor. Talk about that type, this type, mirror configuration. Yeah, and then talk about yours too. You get extra times. You're okay.
Adjust this to where you can see what's going on here. Most of you know what this is. This is a refractor. I brought this with me just to have something that's a little bit different than all these others. We have the smaller refractors over there, like the scope that I actually started out with, which is still at home in plastic. But these are refractors. These collect light in the front, as you know, focus it in the back. Very simple design, actually the first telescopes. This particular one is a 4-inch. It's actually a Celestron. Bargain basement price. $65.
There you go.
I was on a website that we frequent, OPT Corp in California, and Celestron had literally gotten rid of these. They were throwing them out. And they got a hold of about 250 of them. They put a target price just to put it on the website to see if anybody would be interested. I looked at it and said, that's way too cheap. Yeah, I want one. So I ordered one. This came. By the time I came to my senses and wanted to order 10 more, they were all gone. But it's a great telescope. I do a lot of eclipses with it. It's a 990 millimeters and 102 millimeter in the front. It's perfect. This mount you may recognize. It's that mount over there on Greg's telescope. It's called the CG5. This is a CGE Pro. The Dobsonian is basically an Alt-Az mount, as is Tycho and its brother. They're Newtonians. They're easy to set up. They are where astronomy really is right now if you're into the visual side of things. Or if you want to do star work like planets. We actually caught somebody out doing variable stars down at the star party. And they use these exclusively because of their resolution. These two telescopes, Sam's and Greg's, fall into another class. These are much more sophisticated. These actually had to be produced on a computer, and they are made mostly by machine. I can tell you one secret about the mirrors in these things. They have corrector plates on the front because they're spherical. They're just faster to manufacture that way. And you can also make them bigger and cheaper. My favorite telescope. It doesn't involve coordinates. You don't have to worry about that. All you have to do is worry about what is on your star chart and how to find it in the sky. If you're going to go to an equatorial mount like what this is, you're going to learn right ascension. You're going to learn declination. And you're going to have to know how to use a star chart to find all of that. You also have to know how to polar align, line up this scope with the North Star, and then plug in your electronics and get the time, the exact time, and two objects stored in your computer so that it knows what you're looking at. That's why it takes Greg 30 minutes to set that scope up he was talking about, and it takes Dave 5. Okay? Now, you will do a lot more and be able to find a lot more things with a drive. But if you're just learning and want to learn the sky, the Dobsonian is the way to go for the first scope. Personally, I always tell people, get yourself a pair of binoculars. You know, you don't have to worry about anything other than finding the objects in the sky, being able to look at it. You don't have to worry about drift because it's not going to go on your field of view. Whereas with some of these other scopes, it's going to move out of your field of view unless you have something to compensate for that.
Cool.
Okay.
Excellent.
Next.
One of the things real quick I wanted to point out, This scope here, when the light comes in, it goes through a corrector plate up front, bounces off the big mirror on the back, the primary, bounces forward to the little mirror in the center of it, and then bounces back down through the eyepiece. On the refractors, the light goes through the front, bends, comes out the back. On these, this is a Newtonian, named after Isaac Newton. The light comes down, hits a mirror that's parabolic, down here, it's bent and shaped right, focuses up here, and comes out the side. The three basic telescope designs, and that's part of the difference between all of these and part of the cost difference in all these. Now, as a special treat, Teresa, this is my wife, everybody, Teresa. This is the telescope I learned on, that I had when I was a kid. And we found one when we were at the Winter Star Party, and they mispriced it on eBay. So I bought it for $100. And I've given it to wifey.
Hi. I have notes. So this is a 6-inch f8 Criterion Dynoscope RV6, circa about 1968. As he said, we bought it off of eBay for $100. It was the one that he learned on whenever he was a child, so now it was my telescope now. The telescope was made between 1957 and 1982. So I got it 2008, I think, and my first light was seeing the moon, and I saw the X on the moon. So I brought a picture of the X so that people would know I wasn't crazy, that there is an X and a V on the moon. So, but that was my first light up in North Carolina.
Good job.
Sorry.
You did great.
Now I'm like looking through it.
Roger. What you got? Oh, yeah.
Hey guys, I'm got a kind of a different niche in astronomy. My favorite way to do is look at the stars is through a low light video camera. All this is a security camera, but it's got very good low light capabilities. Whereas most cameras require 3 or 4 lux to be able to get any type of image at all. This one will image in 4/10,000ths of lux. So you put the lenses that normally come on these are almost like fisheye lenses, and you don't want a big fisheye view of the sky because it makes the stars look so small you can't see them. But if you have a medium-sized lens, like this is a 50mm SLR camera lens with an adapter on it where it will mount onto a C-mount camera. And then you have a little dongle here that's got a RCA cord, and you can plug that into either like a video recorder. I've done it on DVD, I've done it on VHS, I've done it on high 8, and now I have a little video monitor about the size of a deck of cards that it does a fairly good job of 640 by 480 resolution, about good TV size resolution. The camera itself is the smaller end of this thing. It's about the size of a tube of lipstick. And this is all very modest. You can get into this probably $500 or less. And you get to rewatch it all the time because you've got a way of, if you're not, if you want to record it, you've got a way of doing that too. So anyway, I'll put it on the table here, and if anyone would like to ask me questions about it, I'll be glad to. In addition, if you visit the NEFAS Facebook page, I've uploaded several of the videos that I've done. You just have to, like, you could, my name is Roger Curry. You could probably search Roger or something and bring him up. And the ones that I've done or brought up are pretty old ones, so they're not very high resolution. But I would appreciate if anyone would like to take a look at them and get into this type of thing. I would love to share my experience with you. Thank you.
One cool thing about that is Roger can take pictures and look at videos. And then when we have our normal Jacksonville rainy weather, he can look at the stuff that he shot earlier and we can't. So it's a pretty neat gizmo, and it's another whole section of astronomy that we've got people in the club that do. Roger's excellent with it. So who's over there? Becky. I think you're next with binoculars.
Well, I'm Becky, and I'm new.
How new are you, Becky?
2 months?
Excellent.
2 months, yeah. So I'm starting off with binoculars, and I learned right away aperture is what it's all about, and I'm already not happy with them. These are these are 10 by 50s.
Happens to women.
And I already want to go to 20. These are Celestron 10 by 50s. They're nitrogen filled. That keeps them from fogging up. They are fully multi-coated, and what that means is all the lenses are coated to cut down on the reflectivity of binoculars. If you don't have them coated, the light will reflect off of them, and your light doesn't come in and reach your eyes, which is the whole goal. So what I would say is, if you're going to buy binoculars, probably wait until you know what you want to buy so that you don't have to buy 2 pairs. So that's what's happening to me, because I'm going to get a pair of probably 15 or 20 by 70s, and then next year I'm getting a scope.
There you go. Yay! One of the points on the binoculars, and Becky's right there. However, when you get up into 20 by 80s, 20 by 100, you're going to have arms like Popeye to hold them. So when you get into the big binoculars, you'll see binoculars here on tripods, and basically that keeps, because after you look, you start wobbling around and your arms fall off, which leads us to our next guy, Mr. Napper. Mike?
Okay. And what I've got here is the solution when you want to start moving up some binocular size. Because if you use a tripod, the first thing you're going to run into is if you want to look at something up, you're going to find out it doesn't work. Well, this is called a parallelogram. Combine this with a zero gravity chair, and you can look all night, wherever you want to, up in the sky. And you can put any size binocular on here, because there are counterweights on the other end that you can move around to balance. Now, I'm going to disagree with Becky on one point. You'll keep those 10 by 50s. I've got 10 by 50s, these are 15 by 70s, and I got 20 by 70s. You don't get rid of them because they're all good for something.
For something.
Yeah. And binoculars are a great way to start. There's so many objects up there, especially in a dark sky, because we all keep talking about it's light gathering. It's not power. And you can do some tremendous work with binoculars. I built this one. There are plenty of plans on the web. If you got some lumber lying around and whatever, you can build one of these things really cheap. So just look at some of the plans on the web. I'm at most of the outings or whatever. Usually I've got this thing with me. I'm usually using a scope, but there are a lot of nights I just use this. And I'll be happy to show you how to build one of these things. It's really fairly easy.
One thing that's neat is Mike is a member of NEFAS, Northeast Florida Astronomical Society. Mike is also a member of the St. Augustine Club, the Ancient City Astronomical, what? Club. ACAC, you're a club, not a society. Okay. So Mike is usually at our events in Jacksonville, at Hannah Park, out at the swamp, which is our dark sky site we lovingly call the swamp. And he's also down in Matanzas Inlet when they go down there, and they've got a new site down in St. Augustine that they use that I haven't been to yet, but it's got a real dark sky and a real low horizon. So you can find Mike all over the place. And if you have a big pair of binoculars or you're interested in a parallelogram, again, Mike's in the club. If you want low light, talk to Roger. Roger's in the club. If you want to sell your children, your car, and your house, and buy a great big telescope, you talk to Greg. And Greg is still married. So you can have a big telescope and remain married. I think we've done all the telescopes.
Nope.
In like record time. Got one more? Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to miss you, Susie, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Susie, and not for particular equipment, but I'm just advocating for the youngest members. Dave, how much is it for a family membership?
Oh, I'm here. It's, oh goodness,
You're
$50.
How much?
You're asleep.
How much?
I wasn't asleep, I was just sitting down.
$50, yeah, for all your kids. That's from your oldest to your youngest kids. Now, there's some differences when you're doing astronomy and getting little ones interested. And some of these things are really hard for them to use. Even some of the binoculars are kind of heavy. But there are some advantages of using binoculars, just regular ones. Part of it being the price, because you don't have to be so nervous of them carrying around something and going to drop it and break it. But also, in addition to that, there's some physical things. Sometimes it's hard for the youngest kids to close one eye and look through a telescope, but they don't have any trouble usually with looking through these right away. Also, some of these, with the mirrors and stuff, the images turn out upside down and backwards, and that confuses kids because we want them to understand that what they're seeing in the sky with their eyes is the same as what they're looking at, and they're just seeing minute details of what they saw on that moon. And so these look the same with the binoculars as they do through their eyes. And in fact, one of the strategies I use when the little ones come to look at things and I give them the binoculars is I tell them to look at it with your eyes, keep your eyes there, and bring the binoculars up, and then it's easier for them to spot. And of course, there's no setup time. There's no aperture envy involved.
Yeah, there is.
Not with the little ones.
Usually not with the boys involved.
Yeah. And in addition, it's another price factor is not just astronomy things, but you can look at whatever's birds. You can look at trains going by. You can look at the sports things, and that, so you get a lot more use out of them. So there you go.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Do we have any other telescopes here? I don't think so. All righty. Well, thank you for tolerating us. Again, any questions you have, any of the NEFAS members would love to talk to you. We can show you how these things work. We'd love to take you out when we go to Hannah Park. I don't know what our next Hannah date is. I didn't even look. July 6th? July 6th, Hannah Park. Be there before 7:30 when they close the gates. We're at the parking area 8, where the 2 big pavilions are, and the boardwalk down to the beach. If we ever get a clear night again, there could be as many as 30 telescopes set up there. All of these.
That's celebrating 30 telescopes.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
So anyway, you'll be able to, one of the benefits of joining our club or hanging out with us, because we're all really cool nerds, is that you get to look through these things, try them out, see what you like, what's good for you, and go from there. Because as Emily will tell you, lifting that telescope, or even this one, is kind of hard for somebody that's not as big framed or as fat as I am, where when you get a 6 or an 8 inch, better size for you. And again, the best scope is the one that you use.
Should gather light, not dust.
Gather light, not dust. That's a bumper sticker. I like that. We're going to do that. Okay, that's the end of our talk.